Hi guys, good morning. Uh, Today I'm going to talk about an important topic, whether this particular topic I'm creating video is the reference to a course from NPTEL, which is Programming Data Structures and Algorithms using Python. Uh, I tried to use some of the questions which are given the assignments, I created some of my own, which essentially means that these questions which really give you a basic sense of what this lecture is all about. And it also tells you the minus details. Okay, let's start. So the first thing is that this is the first question that you could see here. It says, consider the following Python function, which is given in the cell, which is given in the cell. And you have to tell what is the work. This question, as you can see, is a recursive question. Recursion is a very important topic as far as the programming is concerned. Now, one of the things that every Python developer or web developer in the world should try to do is try to understand what it does. And it's very easy to from this and we get an answer in Python. However, what you might need a basic understanding of how this works. Now let's try to understand from this code. But let's look at this particular line. So this is a function called history, and it passes an argument. And now basic. This is the basic condition of our basic condition. And if any of these two things happen, it returns one. If there is a certain number of elements within this particular uh, list L, then it is going to return the argument. Now let's take this particular document. Now let's take what you see here is you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements. Now what will this return? This is going to return 6.2. Now it is again further it is checking if I have length is an even number. This check is basically a check of so it's even and else is an odd function. Right. So if this is even, I'm taking the mid values. So what is that I'm doing? I'm returning the mid values. Right. What is this mid value? This happens to be 3 minus 2 is 2, and this happens to be 4. What does, but when you look at the list, it would only read a number less than 4, which is 3, which means that it is going to return the values 2 and 3, the index values 2 and 3, and it is going to add to this list the further values which are returned from this recursive function. Now, what is this recursive function passing? This recursive function is again passing from 0 to 2, right? And then it passes from 3 till the end, which is 4 by 6, which means that this is going to create, this whole thing is going to create a list of values from with index values 0, 1, 2, and then it is going to create a list from 4. So these are the 4 index values it creates. No, this is index value. Okay. If not, it is going to take the mid values. So let's say, for example, if it was 7 by 2, 7 by 2. So what we're going to get is you're going to get the coefficients, which is 3. So you're going to make this between 3 to 4, which means that this is only return value 3, right? And this is going to pass the remaining values from 0 to 2, and this is from 4 to 6. And then 4 to 6. So which means that an even value goes off, the odd value is going out, which is getting stored in this particular list, and the remaining values are being listed. Right? So now what really happens in this whole exercise is if I'm passing an even value, right? Let's say if I'm passing an even value, let's take this particular example. So if I'm passing an even value, it will take out, let's take the same example, 22, 19, 64. So if these are even values, so it first is going to these two things, it is going to take into this list L, right? And then in the recursion, it is going to pass. It is going to pass 22. 14, right? Now this will further take down these two values. So these two values happen to be 1965, and these two values are further taken down with 14 and 72. And what is remaining is this only, and finally these two. So this is going to be a mix. However, if it is happens to be an odd value, first what happens is let's say there is 80. First is going to take out the 65, and then it becomes an even value, and then it becomes the same concept. So 1982. That's how it comes. So now let's run the solution and see if it comes as per our basic explanation. So bingo, so that's what we discussed. Now let's see if I create an odd number. See that plus 65 is going to come, and then the remaining two values in the center. So this plus 65 has come. 165 is picked up, then you have once 99 and 14 and 55 is picked up, then you have both the answers clear from this. Okay. So let's get into the next solution part of it. Next question. What is the triplet value? So this is a question on list comprehension. So we should know how the list comprehensions generally work. It's a very simple thing. So if you see out here, so basically, if you want to see this, this is nothing but to say, for it's in range. So these are nested words. Nested for. So, okay, and then here the if condition comes. So if x plus y is greater than z, then I'm going to, let's say I'm going to take some list. So what is that I'm going to append? You see out here, this is basically a tuple. And once this particular thing is done, this is exactly same as writing as this. So what we are talking about is this particular one is where it generates a range of values in the form of x, y, and z. And once this is generated, it uses this built-in condition. So it only takes those tuples which satisfy this particular condition. And how does this for loop work? Just to give an understand, this for loop is going to work as because it starts from 1 to the next one will be 1, 6. The next one will be 1. we'll see this in this example, and we'll also see this. So let's see, we have this. Let's see what this is. Okay. You'll get all values. So you will see that this x plus y should be greater than this z. So x plus y is greater than this z. Now let's assume if I remove this condition, what's going to happen? Just list down all the values which generate out of these three nested formulas. So this, that's how it's going to open your this. This is the same thing which I've tried to. Okay. All right. So the next question is, we have this given set of dictionary. So this is basically a dictionary within a dictionary. It tells me which of the statement does not generate, which means that which of the statement would actually pass through and which not. So before we do this question, you have to be cognizant of a couple of things as far as this dictionary system is concerned. Okay. Now let's say this particular dictionary you could write this. Is just to make you understand, right? Then we have another key. Right? So now let's look at each of these options. So it says marks, exams, Suresh, and you extend 44, which means that you are extending the existing list in the case exam and Suresh by a list 44. Right? Now let's look for exam and Suresh. So we have the first key as exam. So within exam, we find that there is no switch. So this is what I was trying to tell. If there is no key, then you cannot use this extension function because it doesn't have this relation. So it doesn't know where to extend. So this will be right. Now the same thing happens here. We have exam and Suresh. So again, exam and Suresh is not there, right? So this will also generate a right? Now let's take about this exam and Suresh. Now it says exam and Suresh and it says append 44. But this will work. Why this will work? By default, you don't need any initializations within the dictionary. You could just create the key and you could add the item to that, which is what we are creating the key and we add. And again, here we are saying exam and Suresh. So again, we don't have these two keys, exam and Suresh. So again, this is going to. Okay. Now let's see how this works. So now let's say I put this and I see this. So it gives error, which is as per discussed. This error. I'm sorry, I just did a mistake. I think I kind of misplaced on this. So basically, this particular append will not work because append would require an existing key, right? Here we are just creating the Suresh and then adding the item to this. So this will work. So this works. This will work. So the basic thing that you have, the basic learning from this question is that if you have, this is a very simple concept. If you have a dictionary, if you say that if you have a dictionary, let's say I have it, so this, and I could say the you could do this, this will directly work, and which is exactly the thing which is happening. However, if you we happen to say the, for this to work, you should already have a dictionary which is defined as an empty list. Once you do this, this will let's kind of see that as well. So what I could do is if I want to make this work, I'm going to size. I created a new subkey Suresh, and I'm going to make this as a list and it's created into list. Once I create it into list, then you can see this. This works. And now let's press this. Let's make this. See, you have your solution as well. So that's how these things work. Even if you want to do extend, extend will also work in the same way. And this is again, once we have the particular list, we want to slice that out between us. So this works only when I have this list. All right. Let's go to the next thing, which is an important concept again in lists. So this talks about which of these items would give an error. Now, let's look at this. Right. So one of the things is whenever you define a dictionary and then you define a key here, and then you define here. This value has to be an immutable. This key has to be immutable. Which are the words which are immutable? There are immutable. Which are immutable? Mutable, the general so the key value cannot be in list or a dictionary. Other than this, it can be. And look at these things that we have. If we have, so now this is a mutable value. This value can be anything. This is just a list, so you're assigning it. So this is a blank dictionary. We're creating a view. So this is immutable. And again, you see here, again, this is string. This is immutable. Here again, you see this is a list. What is a list? So this is immutable. Here again, you see that here it is given as a tuple and receptacle is immutable. So this is immutable. This will work, this will work, this will be error. Let's look at this. See this. So this works. This works. this works. This does not work because this is okay. Hope that is clear. The concept of mutable and immutable is very important. Okay. Now let's look at this particular set of things. So I have this small function. I've taken string and I'm trying to create each of the letters in this particular string. And what I'm trying to do, I'm creating a key value index, key and the value, so it's the same value which I see. And then I'm just displaying the keys. So what do you think will be set of keys? Okay, so basically when you do this case, it should give me a sequence of keys. So what I'm trying to ask you is what is the correct sequence of this case? It's going to be A, B, C, D, it's going to be reverse order, or it's going to be some other order. So let's look at this. Let's run this. So if I run it, so if I run this, I see that so if I run this, I get this ABCD. And when we see this, we will be immediately tempted to think that this is always in this particular sequence. But I have to remind you, this is not the case. When you try to do some other thing, it may give some other sequence, right? So basically, the answer that is giving is the same input sequence, which means that the sequence in which you have inputted, it is giving you the response actually, but it is not necessary that this always gives you the data in the same sequence. Sometimes it can give you in any sequence as A, C, B, D, any sequence it can give it based on the weight internally stores. So just keep it in mind that the sequence in which the dictionary keys displays values has no order. Sometimes it can give you an order, sometimes it cannot give you an order, but essentially it has no order. So if you want to maintain an input sequence, you have to devise some other way of storing the input entry sequence, and then you have to sort it. All right, now let's come to the last part of this particular questions that we have. Is what is going to be the output of this particular sequence? What is going to be the output of this particular sequence? So, and this is this particular question is kind of encapsulate many concepts of functions, different documents, passing the functions, function object instruction. Right? Now let's understand this. So I'm just creating a function called square. So I'm just initializing it. So I'm checking if it is equal to list. If the x asked is list, right? And what I'm trying to do, I'm using the list comprehension and it is squaring the values of each items passed in the list, which means that you can pass to 2 and 3. 2 and 3, this is going to give me a list of 3. If I pass 2, this is going to give me, right? And else I'm going to pass just the square value, x square, and it is. Now look at this function. So this is an apply function and write a generic function. What is this function doing? Remember, this function what has takes two arguments. One is the function which you want to pass, another is the value. And so what are these two? So function could be any function. Okay, here I am passing it in square. Now, what is this value? This is the value that I'm passing through this particular function. So this value could be, as per our program, this could be a list or an integer. What is this one? If you look at this function, it is used in this generator. So basically, it iterates so many times. So the default value is passed by the. So now look at this. What happens here when we pass this? I'm passing a rating function. I'm passing it through, but I'm not passing it through out because I have already defined the default value for y in my function definition. So it is going to by default take. So when we pass this is going to pass it to return. So this value is 2, 3. So this value becomes x becomes 2, 3. It's going to read each other values. So first it takes 2, it creates 2 square, and then it creates 3, it creates 3 square, which gives me extra 4. So if you actually see this particular function, beautifully encapsulate passing the function. How many times it has to run. Now let's say if I make this y is equal to 2, what is going to happen? It's going to just run this function once. So once 2 and 3, once you run this function, it gives you 4 and 5. And once you again run this, it becomes 16. So that's good. So hope you have enjoyed this session. And, thank you for your time.